The Hustleshare podcast is sponsored by Aspire. Trusted by 15,000 businesses across Asia, Aspire offers a unified suite of financial services, allowing businesses to make fast international payments to 130-plus countries, global payments at the best FX rates, and open multi-currency accounts in US dollars, euros, Great British Pound, Singaporean dollars, Indonesian rupiah, and more. All accessible on via a single user-friendly platform, Aspire. And also by Uno Digital Bank, a full-spectrum digital bank licensed and regulated by the BSP. Manage your money and maximize its potential growth with a secure and trusted bank that fits right in your pocket. Open a savings or time deposit account, pay bills, shop with the Uno Virtual Debit MasterCard, or apply for a loan in the Uno mobile app today. The Hustleshare podcast is sponsored by Lark, the leading super app for work in Southeast Asia. Frustrated with juggling and paying for multiple tools for work? Hate mixing personal and business messages? Improve your team's productivity by 10 times with Lark, which combines business chat, email, video conferencing, calendar, project management, real-time translation, and much more into one super app. Trusted by companies like Xiaomi, Glints, Kumu, and Mamaluz. Get it for free at larksuite.com today. This podcast is brought to you by Salmon, your trusted source for all your financial needs. Whether you're looking for easy financing with low down payments and fast approval, or seeking high returns with their 8.88% interest on time deposits, Salmon has you covered. Visit salmon.ph today and discover how they can help you achieve your financial goals. Rural Bank of Santa Rosa Laguna Incorporated is regulated by the BSP. For any concerns, email consumeraffairs@bsp.gov.ph. Deposits are insured by PDIC up to 500,000 pesos per depositor.
Kind of wanted to stay in the US. Mm-hmm. And one of my early aspirations was to work in New York City.
There you go.
It's still one of my favorite world capitals. Mm-hmm. And until today.
Yep.
Spent many weekends there when I was in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. It was a 2-hour train ride. So that was what I wanted, and I interviewed aggressively. Mm-hmm. But not being a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, it was a little bit tougher.
Welcome to Hustleshare, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Baetiong.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Hustleshare podcast. This is extra special because for the past 5 years plus of me talking, we finally got to this mega milestone of me taking our 300th episode. And 300 is not a random number because 300 is a special number with this man. So it was meant to be. But without further ado, let's welcome to the show the president and CEO of IBPAP, Mr. Jack Madrid. Jack, welcome to the show, and thank you for being episode 300.
Thank you, Ron. It's good to be here, finally.
Yes, again, been a big fan of yours. I've seen how you guys have done amazing stuff in the IBPAP, and easily, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the biggest industry in our country. And it keeps us afloat for all these crazy ups and downs that the economy goes through. But without further ado, I need to ask you the $1 million question. Jack, what's your hustle?
Thank you, Ron. I am presently responsible for IBPAP. That is the acronym for the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines. We are the flagship industry group for the IT BPM industry. Some people still refer to us as the BPO industry. I don't like it when they call us the call center industry, but we still get called that. But simply put, we are the voice of the entire industry that has now grown amazingly to a 1.7 million strong employee workforce, generating over 35 billion US dollars to the economy. So with a lot of confidence, I can say we are an indispensable pillar of the Philippine economy.
I totally agree. 35 billion. That's 35 unicorns in startup terms, technically, that we're talking about. And again, this is easily, again, a pillar of our Philippine economy. So many lives depend on this. I depend on it. I forgot to tell you this, but Jack, the reason why I credit the BPO industry, back then it was call center industry, it will have a special place in my heart. It's because I learned how to speak like this through the call center. My very first job, full time, was a telemarketer. I was a first year college student and going on second year. I was 18 years old. And they taught me how to speak like this. And I haven't looked back since. If I did not learn the skill of speaking American English, no chance in hell I'm going to get this far.
It's a great backstory.
So again, BPO is something that I did. I'm glad I did early, and I've known so many amazing people that have gone far, that are paying it forward, that had their initial starting point in the IT BPM/BPO or whatever industry you want to call it. But of course, the correct one is called IT BPM. So if you're listening to this, do not use a misnomer. You're educated already better. But Jack, before we talk about the IT BPM industry and of course the indelible mark you guys do, I need you to buckle up real quick, because before we talk about hustling and helping the whole ecosystem and the whole industry, we need to go all the way back and understand the origin story of a Jack Madrid, because we're going to have to ride the Hustleshare time machine. And we are back all the way. So again, before we even talk about the finished product or this amazing product that we see now, which is Jack Madrid in the flesh. Jack, what was your first recollection or exposure into hustling? Were there any role models that left an indelible mark in your life that, you kind of saw hustle being done? Because hustling isn't being taught verbally, it's taught by exposure, or taught by doing. Or who were the first exposures that you had on hustling? And second, what was the first hustle that you remember doing?
Great question. I would have to say, since we're in a time machine, I would have to say that it was the example set by my father. Watching him prepare to go to work every morning. Back then, I recall as a child, even before I went to school, that he diligently prepared going to the office every day. My father, back then and throughout most of his career, was an insurance executive for the Ayala group of companies, and it didn't really hit me at the time, but now that I recall, now that I've been part of the working world for 4 decades,
yep.
I now appreciate the enthusiasm in his daily discipline of getting ready to go to work. He did it with a lot of purpose and deliberation, I would say, and I would even say excitement.
Nice.
And that was really a very powerful example, I think, of what a good work culture is, and the values around making a living and doing something that you love. I just took it for granted. I thought that was normal, but now I know much better. It is actually more of an exception rather than the rule. And since then, Ron, and this is something that I say to all my teams over my career. One gauge answering the question whether I am, whether one is in the right place and doing good work.
Okay.
Is really the feeling one has when one is on his or her way to work.
Yes.
Am I looking forward to today?
Yep.
Am
Or
I
you
looking
resent it.
forward to being in this work environment, meeting these people and working with them? Or would I rather be doing something else and I'm just doing this because I have to, because it brings a paycheck? And that's been my compass,
Nice.
guiding me on whether what I'm doing right now is what I should be doing or whether I should be doing something else.
Totally agree. That barometer, actually, it's a very easy thing, and people often forget that they have a choice. Now, of course, people are different, are born into different circumstances and whatnot. But if you see someone that really enjoys going to do his hustle on a daily basis, and the diligence that it requires to get to do that, the discipline, and also the good habits that you see, that rubs off on you. Because you see that, okay, my father is a perfect example of how hustle is, actually enjoys the work, and he does. And if you enjoy the stuff that you actually do, it translates in the output that you will create for sure. Now, Jack, I want to now understand the first hustles that you did. I know you saw your dad being a good example, being an exec in the insurance industry. What was the very first recollection of hustling that you remember?
Again, this was during grade school.
Uh-huh.
Part of my childhood and elementary years was in Cebu City, and I got to observe, a lot of entrepreneurs, both young and not so young, and that, I guess, exposed me to certain behaviors and ways of thinking.
Okay.
Outside of what is traditional work.
Yeah.
Even in school, I would notice that some enterprising classmates of mine would find very creative ways to make a little bit of money, to augment their allowance.
Nice.
Or to even just obtain those very coveted meal stubs.
Nice.
Way back when, I went to a school called Sacred Heart in Cebu, and just during recess, I would observe people just very enterprising, making a quick buck on the side. Now, I tried to emulate that, by maybe coming up with enterprising activities. I was not very original. I would just maybe copy something that I thought was cool, whether it be trading marbles or something that was really strange at that time. And now that I recollecting my grade school days, was really the practice of collecting spiders and we would keep them in these matchboxes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we would get our individual collection of spiders to fight each other.
Yeah, on a stick.
Yeah, on a stick. So and that was I guess that might count as a kind of a hustle, because somehow we find a way to profit from it.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Now, obviously, these things are fundamental. I mean, people never realize, like, oh, shoot, I did that before. And part of what I did before still translates now. And I always talk about, whenever, especially in amazing guests like you, the skill stack. Basically, what are the very first skills that you remember doing? Because I remember during our meeting last week in the pen, like, hey, when in a podcast environment, by the way, Jack has a podcast for the IBPAP, so please do check it out. It's probably produced by Podcast Network Asia. But what comes naturally to you is the gift of gab. Like, you are an efficient and amazing communicator that you can actually have a great conversation, regardless of who's across the table. Did that develop early on? And what is your first recollection of you harnessing that power?
Wow, that's well. Thanks for the compliment, Ron. I credit again my father
Mhm.
for being himself, a very good communicator, speaks clearly, uh, always in straight English, which I took for granted today, at the expense of being a very mediocre, mumbling Tagalog speaker. But I think ability to communicate was an early lesson for me, and it was reinforced. Whenever I was called on in my grade school days to recite something or to come up with an answer. I wouldn't raise my hand very often, but certainly being able to speak and getting over any kind of phobia of speaking was important. But you might be surprised to hear me say that it, at least at that time, during that phase of my life, I was really, I really preferred to keep to myself and did not really speak all that much compared to some of my classmates. It
Wow.
was my preferred activity. I could do it if I had to.
Uh-huh.
But the courage
Okay.
and the final hurdle of getting over this fear of public speaking came a little bit later. It actually, and I remember exactly the day
When
that
was it?
that it happened. It was in the middle of my eighth grade. I was
Wow.
I guess I was just turned 14,
Okay.
and I was one of the very few Asians, and certainly the only Filipino, in an international school in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
In KL.
Yeah, KL.
Mhm.
Formative years for me, and my first time to be in an international school.
Okay.
And at that time they were predominantly American and
Yep.
European, and it was different then, Ron. The
Yeah.
world was very different.
Mm.
The
Cold War.
Americans and
Mhm.
the Europeans, if your hair was blonde or you had blue eyes, there was there was a certain uh,
Preference.
it was just the environment was just a little
Yeah.
bit, the world was very different then, and maybe being conscious of the fact that I was a new student. It was my first year,
Yep.
and I was a natural, you're gonna laugh when I say this,
Uh-huh.
introvert. uh,
What?
I, I
Wow.
I took it upon myself
Okay.
to enroll in a debate class.
Oh, you were a debater.
Yeah, well, I took up the class, and
Okay.
gosh, I said, "This is this is gonna be painful."
Yeah.
I had butterflies in my stomach
Right.
every single time, but the first time that I had to actually speak in public, was an actual debate,
Holy
and
crap.
hearing my voice in a small auditorium in front of my peers and some teachers was hair raising.
Yeah.
But those 20 or 30 minutes
Yep.
speaking on stating my position on
Correct.
whatever the debate topic was. I think it was pro or anti-abortion. I'm not quite sure.
Mhm.
But I didn't mind what I heard.
Nice.
I was like listening to myself while I was speaking, and I said, Jack, you're not that bad.
Yeah. You belong here.
You could actually do this.
Mm.
And after that class, which is probably the most important class I took
Okay.
in my middle school, I then had this courage
Yeah.
to try out for a musical. and
Oh,
and audition for a play.
okay. Man, you
And
upped the ante pretty quick.
yeah, it's that was in the ninth grade,
Okay.
and that led into a series of acting gigs.
Right.
The roles got bigger over time, and
Nice.
it kind of became part of my arsenal.
Your repertoire, technically.
Yeah.
Right now, and that's important. And I would totally agree because I was similar in nature. Like people won't believe that. Oh, I was a bit of an ambivert. Obviously, I'm more my tendencies go to being extroverted all the time. But I get nervous every time. I can't even speak in front of people. But all it takes is that one anchor moment where you tell yourself, yo, you just you killed it today. Right? That you actually prove it to yourself. And the most important thing in that, and this I always tell this to people whenever I train sales, that all you need is an anchor close or an anchor event where you tell yourself, you look yourself in the mirror and you say, you effing killed it. And then after that, you then build confidence and you want to build on top. Because at the end of the day, when it will always happen, there's always going to be that uncomfortable event in the room, like, oh my God, your imposter syndrome will kick in. But what I always tell myself is like, hey, okay, when you hit that, just remember that time again when you felt like you didn't belong and you killed it. So what's the difference now? You're probably gonna kill it again. And you just need to prepare. So that's amazing. Now, okay, I'll go fast forward here. I'm looking at your LinkedIn. Of course, you studied in KL, but one thing I'm super duper impressed with, and we're just starting the episode, is you studied accounting and finance in Penn. Not just in Penn, it's the Wharton School. A proper, real Wharton graduate. Okay? Not a fake graduate. A real graduate in Wharton that you can look up. He is actually a real student and he finished it. What was that like in studying? And how did you even get to the Ivy Leagues, man, from KL?
Wow. I have to credit my father yet again. In KL, it was a great school. Became an athlete of sorts. Not a good athlete, but an athlete nonetheless.
What sport?
The advantage of being in a small school.
Okay.
Is that you got to play pretty much any sport you tried out for. The only thing I did not do was American football.
Oh,
For obvious reasons.
well, what sport did you got?
Well, I wow, it's embarrassing. I actually played varsity basketball for
What? I played too.
yeah
Yeah. What
for
I'm a midget.
ISKL Panthers.
Nice.
Of course, I obviously never started, but certainly a second stringer all my career. I played all the racket sports,
Wow.
but the one sport that I was quite decent in, and in fact was the school champion, was 10-pin bowling.
Whoa. Did you even know that, IBPAP? That Jack Madrid is Paeng Minepomoceno before Paeng was existed.
Which is why, Ron, the number 300 means a lot to me.
Because?
Because 300 is the perfect score in bowling.
There you go. So again, this is not by accident. This is Jack in his bowling era. That's amazing. But again, I'll just digress a little bit on this because sports teaches you so many things. Like I credit my varsity basketball times in playing the UAAP. I wasn't again the star player. I was co-captain. Decent, but I learned how to properly lead and be a good teammate there. But the type of preparation that it taught me, how to become a good player, how to develop grit, resilience, be an effective communicator, the real grind to do preparation for a tournament is not something you forget. It sticks with you for life. And whatever I learned, I still basically that's like foundational in me. How did those sports actually prep you, and did that carry along when you went to Penn?
Well, the value that sports participation taught me looking back, is really appreciating what it means to be part of a team.
Yes.
Especially when you were not playing or you were not the star.
Yeah.
But it did hit me that, Jack, you're not going to get many minutes,
Mm.
but you're practicing,
Mhm.
you're traveling with the team. You have this relationship with the coach,
Yep.
and you are playing a role, even though the cheerleaders are not chanting your name.
Mhm.
You do have a role, and I don't know. It just made me appreciate that, and I think the necessity of practice,
Mhm.
and having that mental discipline, even though you knew you were not going to play,
Mhm.
because our coach, worked us hard, regardless of whether you were a
Yep.
start or a second string.
People run the same suicides, regardless.
Absolutely, and it also instilled in me,
Mm.
the importance of trying to be fit, and that has pretty much carried over into adulthood, and
Yes.
even led me to attempting one of the things that's always been on my bucket list since I was a child, which is to run at least one marathon.
Wow.
So, which I did at the age of 54.
What?
Yeah,
Congrats. That's
uh,
amazing.
it made me feel good. It made
Yeah.
me really. One of the few times I impressed myself was when I did.
Nice. Nice. It's just like speaking in public in eighth grade all over again. But okay, Jack, again, before we take our first break, I want to now understand what was the pen experience like? Because not a lot of people get to Wharton or to pen. And how did that transform you, and what did you learn during your Wharton days?
The most important pieces of I guess my character development and knowledge, I guess,
Mm.
were not from the classroom. I hate to admit this. Tuition was not cheap, but
Never in Wharton.
um, I don't remember a whole lot from all the classroom experiences.
Yeah.
Certainly not the curriculum. But of course, there were some very memorable courses. But I think the most important lessons came from what I did and what I
Okay.
learned from outside the classroom, and a lot of it is about doing things myself. I
Mm.
I had to cook. Well, I don't know if you would actually consider it real cooking, but I had to make some kind of,
Yeah, you ate it, so it's all good.
meal and sustenance within a very limited budget,
Yep.
because I didn't want to rely on allowance. The tuition was and the rent was high enough. I didn't want my family to have to send me allowance too.
Okay.
So I had to, I took
Side hustles.
the first time I worked. So I
Uh-huh.
had various short-term jobs, like being a security guard for the building. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Not like the ones here with a gun
Right.
but just allowing people in and out of our residence,
Yep.
earning minimum wage. I was an English tutor for Asian kids, and I took occasional. These are the most profitable ones. They
Yeah.
paid the most per hour.
Yeah.
I became a participant in psychology experiments. So those
Oh.
paid more, you know, and that's how I kind of made ends meet. And
Okay.
and so learning how to do things myself, finding a way to buy stuff, um, uh, do shopping, grocery shopping, all of these things by myself. How to share an apartment, how to split up the cleaning, responsibilities for our dormitory.
Yeah.
All of these things, quite mundane,
Yeah.
but those kind of help shape me.
Yeah, that's character forming for sure. Because especially here, coming from a Filipino household where, like me, for me, I hate to admit it, I hate doing chores because I grew up having a maid. At least there's household help that's gonna do it, but I'm gonna compensate in other stuff. Like I'm gonna really go hustle. But if you ask me to do stuff now, man, I'm a grown ass man. It's like, it's gonna be hard. I don't want to wash the dishes. I don't want to cook. Like I'd rather grab. That's what I'm gonna do. Because at least now there's choices. Back then you don't. You have to really put up. And eating out, even on diners, are quite pricey. That's an easily $5 about and above if you're gonna do that regularly. But lastly,
So that
Jack,
was the most important one, Ron.
yeah,
But before I forget, I think the second important takeaway,
Okay.
from those 4 years in Penn
Mhm.
was because everyone was a good student. Everyone was smart,
yeah,
right? And they were, valedictorians or honor students were a dime a dozen.
yep, creme de la creme.
And I realized, wow, I thought I was above average. Here I am average
Oh.
at best. So I that was not a comfortable feeling. It was intimidating, knowing I was just like, half the people here are actually smarter than me.
Yep.
And I don't know. It took a while for me to get used to it, but it helped. It maybe made me a little bit more humble.
Because again, that's literally the perfect epitome of not being the smartest guy in the room, and it forces you to level up because you know that hey, there's a lot more people who are way competent as well. And if you surround yourself as an entrepreneur or as a hustler in rooms like that where you're not head and shoulders above everyone else, but you're actually looking up, then that's where you can actually grow tremendously. All right, now let's take our first break, and when we come back, we will now talk about the professional life of Mr. Jack Madrid, but this is a long one, so we're gonna have to do it easily one by one. We'll talk about that more after the break. Hey hustlers, how are companies like Pizza Hut, Tech in Asia, and Love Bonito saving $28,000 a year? Well, Aspire is an all-in-one finance solution designed for modern businesses. Over 15,000 companies across Asia are using Aspire to streamline business financial processes, saving both time and money. Now, Aspire understands the demand of your business, and these are their offers. Lightning-fast international transfers enabling money movement across 130 plus countries, the best FX rates with no hidden fees ensuring transparency, and multi-currency accounts in US dollars, euros, Great British Pounds, Singaporean dollar, Indonesian rupiah, and more, facilitating transactions in multiple currencies. And guess what? Opening an account can be done 100% online, making access to a global business account effortless. Aspire works with thousands of startups across Asia, offering an easy way to open a business account to receive investments from VCs. Aspire is backed by global top-tier VCs including Sequoia and Y Combinator, and has been recognized by CB Insights as one of the top 100 most promising fintechs globally. Join over 15,000 businesses across Asia that have already made the switch to Aspire and experience the future of business finance. For more details, visit aspireapp.com. That's ASPIREAPP.com. Again, that's aspireapp.com. And let's make business finance simple, integrated, and borderless together. Hey hustlers, money issues and financial stress are a reality we all face, and ignoring them won't make them disappear. That's why our sponsor, Salmon, is committed to making managing your finances easy and more accessible. With Salmon financing, you can shop to over 2,000 Salmon partner stores nationwide and bring home your dream purchases today with a low down payment starting at just 10%. Plus, it's super easy to apply. Just one valid ID is needed and you can get approved right then and there. No need to wait for payday. Just take what you need now and pay for it over time. And if you're someone that's looking for ways to grow your money, Salmon's time deposit accounts at the Rural Bank of Santa Rosa, Laguna, which is regulated by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, offers a fantastic 8.88% interest rate for a 12-month term for deposits of more than 500,000 pesos. That's currently the highest rate in the Philippines.
Deposits are also insured by the PDIC with up to 500,000 pesos per depositor, so you know your money is safe and secure. It's definitely a great way to make your money work harder for you effortlessly. Since launching in 2022, Salmon has raised over $60 million and is backed by industry giants like the IFC, ADQ, and Northstar Group, ensuring they're a reliable partner in your financial journey. So whether you need financing, credit, or high-return savings option, Salmon has you covered. So visit salmon.ph today to see how they can help you achieve your financial goals with ease. Again, that's salmon.ph. Finance made easy with Salmon.
And we're back from the break. We are still with Jack Madrid, who then told us his pre-work environment hustle. This is literally Ivy Leaguer, Wharton School, Penn Jack Madrid. But Jack, after Penn, what was the very first hustles that you did?
Well, in our senior year, the focus was on really what's next.
Okay.
And Penn being Penn, especially the Wharton School where everyone was a business major. It was a very pre-professional kind of environment. It was, the last year was all about, okay, so what job are you going to land when you graduate? And so the pressure was really on us. And recruiters were all over the campus.
Yeah.
I had kind of wanted to stay in the US. And one of my early aspirations was to work in New York City.
There you go.
It's still one of my favorite world capitals. And until today.
Yep.
Spent many weekends there when I was in Philadelphia. It was a 2-hour train ride. So that was what I wanted, and I interviewed aggressively. But not being a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, it was a little bit tougher.
Correct.
Despite coming from a good school. But fortunately, Citibank was aggressively recruiting on campus.
Wow. And
that made a lot of sense to me. Being a finance and accounting major, Citibank, especially back then, had this, a very, very prestigious kind of a financial institution to work for.
Absolutely.
And so I signed up and, did well enough in the interview process that I was given an offer to be a management trainee for Citibank back in Manila. And that's the way Citibank did it. There were a lot of international students, and so Citibank would be hiring international students to return to their countries. So that
repatriation, technically.
Correct. And I'll be very honest, it was not my first choice.
Okay.
But I thought that it was the best fit for what I studied.
Yep.
And so I made the very big decision of deciding to return to Manila.
Nice.
And and the rest is history, as they say. Because that really began my career and where I met everyone that has since shaped my life. Now, I kind of have to say that I had not lived in the Philippines for a good chunk of my life.
In your formative years, pa. There you go.
Correct. Because I left Manila after the second grade.
Yeah.
And so literally, I had been absent from Manila for a good 16. Oh, not quite 16, maybe 13, 14 years.
Yeah, but that's a big
we
stretch.
moved to Cebu City after Manila, and then from Cebu, I lived in Hong Kong. My dad, was an expatriate in Hong Kong before moving to Kuala Lumpur. So we had moved quite a bit. And that's really, I guess, worth saying. Part of my character formation was this adaptability,
Yeah.
change,
You're a
different
world citizen.
friends,
Mhm.
and being just being very flexible around different types of personalities.
Yeah.
And I guess Manila was a big decision, but I stayed in Citibank for a
13
good
years. To
yes,
be exact.
13 years.
13 years and 5 months, according to your LinkedIn.
And everything happened there. I thought I would be a career city banker.
Lifer.
Um, and because of Citibank, I decided not to pursue a master's degree. I consider Citibank my MBA,
Yeah.
and I carved out my own niche.
Yeah.
I learned everything: how to manage up, how to manage down, how to get along with my peers,
Yep.
and above all else, my relationship management skills
Yes.
were sharpened and honed in Citibank, because my last roles at Citibank were to manage the bank's multinational customers.
Wow.
And so, from age 27 all the way till I left when
Yeah.
I was about 34. So for
Yeah.
a good 7 years, I managed the most important multinational clients of Citibank, both
Right.
here in Manila and in Hong Kong.
That is amazing. And this is one thing, again, I wish we had more time to talk about Citibank, but we're just literally starting at the bottom of your resume. So we cannot babad too much. So now the next thing I see is Ayala Corporation, 1995 to 2004, 8 years, 5 months. So again, this the full circle moment, because your dad used to be a former Ayala guy. My mom, I'll go on tangent a little bit, used to worked in Ayala Foundation 17 years. So she would always bring me to the office during summer breaks. I would play in the Ayala Museum, and
Yes.
sometimes bump into VPG, and
Yes, Vicky.
sometimes and bump into to Jazza. I don't know. I was just a kid. All I knew is like, all right, I'm going to Makati. I get to play because while my mom's in the office, I'm gonna be in Glorieta or Greenbelt. That's what it is. But my mom, till now, she's retired, adores Ayala. Like, the only thing missing is her last name. If she can change it to Ayala, she would change it to Ayala. She goes, everything that's Ayala. Ooh, that molo, Ayala yan. Ooh, Manila Water, Ayala yan. You'll always say that. But I credit Ayala so much because through that, my mom had a stable job, and my mom had the ability to put me in good schools that she couldn't afford back then, but still she did it. And those opportunities paved the way for me. But for your experience in Ayala, because you did 8 years, 5 months, again, with your dad being formerly Ayala also, what was that experience like? And as managing director of AC, what was that like?
It's funny. I never thought I would work for Ayala, despite the fact that I had a lot of respect for the company, and I, as I said earlier, I watched my dad, go to work every day. He was with the Ayala Group most of his career, but somehow it was not the type of. It was just not the company I thought as a kid that I would work for.
Okay.
But so it was quite, I would say, almost ironic that I got this phone call. I was in my office in Citibank. The best things in my career happen or start with a phone call.
Okay, there you go.
I got this phone call, and it was the head of strategic planning of Ayala Corp.
Okay.
And he went straight to the point and asked me, would I be interested to take on a role in the strategic planning group of Ayala Corp.
What?
And yes, we know who you are.
Just in Valero, I assume.
Yes, I was in Citibank, Paseo de Rojas. Yeah,
Paseo, and then you just need to cross to go to Tower 1.
And of course, I was intrigued. And the timing was right, because I considered it quite seriously. And one meeting over lunch at the Mandarin, and I verbally accepted.
Nice.
The rest again is history.
Mhm.
Another very important milestone of my career.
Yep.
Joining Ayala in 1995.
Now this is where it gets interesting because again, I'm a Gen Z. I mean, not Gen Z, millennial. Sorry, why did I call myself Gen Z? I'm not Gen Z. I'm too old to be Gen Z. I'm an MTV generation type of guy. MTV G's, that's the stuff that I grew up on. And you became, after being in Ayala, the managing director of MTV Networks here. And a little tidbit: there's so many cross links that we're doing right now. The studio that we put up on for Podcast Network Asia is right beside your old studio in the Decagon in Silver City in Pasig. But what was it like managing MTV 2004 to 2006, where MTV was all culture? This is like the best of the best revolves in MTV.
We begin this chapter with another phone call.
Okay. Okay.
Was 2004. I was having coffee in UCC, and I got this phone call. And it was a headhunter who I did not know.
Okay.
And again, the question was immediately asked: would you consider taking on a TV station?
Okay.
And I said, you are calling the wrong person. There is nothing in my background. In fact, I asked, are you calling Jack Madrid?
Yep.
And the person said confidently, yes, we got your number. We were referred to you. Our job is to just call you to ask that question and to ask for your CV. I didn't have like LinkedIn or anything.
Yeah. It didn't exist yet.
And since I wasn't really looking for a job, my CV was clearly not updated.
Yep.
But anyway, apparently it was serious, and I didn't see a fit. Yep. But to make a long story short, Ron, I decided to throw my hat in anyway because I had time.
Okay.
To just go through this process. I said, you know what? I'm curious. What would this be like?
Okay.
And I was, I had so many questions, but it took a couple of weeks, and then I was, on the 18th hole of Santa Elena. I got another phone call, and they said, Jack, you are in the last two candidates.
Oh wow!
We are considering, and can you fly to Singapore on Monday to meet the head of MTV Asia? This will be the final interview. And, I obviously flew to Singapore. And again, I really didn't know what to expect. I really didn't actually think I was going to do this, but went through the process. And it was really strange because my interview was in a pool table.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he was not in a room, he was standing and leaning, this guy, Frank Brown, against the pool table. And I was like, I didn't know, am I going to sit, stand? I didn't even know if I was dressed appropriately.
Okay.
But anyway, I think it went relatively well because the next day I got an offer.
Did you beat him in 9-ball or 8-ball? What was that?
What's that?
Did you beat him on a pool table with 9-ball or 8-ball?
No, I just, it was just instinct, when I interview and when I talk and in uncertain environment or with uncertain outcomes, I just rely on instinct. I don't have like answers. But anyway, I guess maybe he thought I was creative or something. And
nice.
And anyway, MTV was a pivotal milestone in my career because it taught me the possibility of reinvention. From a banker, corporate guy wearing, a suit and a tie for, I don't know, almost 20 years. And then now I'm in, gonna go to this very different environment of MTV. It was fraught with uncertainty. So I'll never forget my first day in the office. So I walk in without a tie, okay? But I was still in relatively corporate type clothing, and I never felt as uncool as I did. Like everyone was in, jeans and, sneakers and t-shirts, and I saw the VJs and they saw me and they said, "Is this guy the new head?" and it was, I got a lot of strange looks. And so before I went home that night, I bought some new clothes.
Nice.
I didn't like that feeling. And anyway, complete reinvention.
Right.
I had to, the role was to make a business out of this crazy brand called MTV. And fortunately, it turned out relatively well. And I had the time of my life. We had the best Christmas parties ever.
Yep.
And sometimes it really didn't even feel like work, but it was a bit of a pressure cooker because I had to make money.
Yeah.
I had to generate positive cash flow through advertising sales and event sales. That was my first exposure to events. Anyway, stayed there for almost 3 years.
Yep.
And wow, after MTV, Ron, I said, you know what? I can do anything.
Wow. Now the lid is open. And you did Dell quickly here. I'm just going to go through this as a director. Then I want to now go to the next one after Dell. Sorry. Again, your resume is really, really long. And I want to do things because, of course, when we talk about Hustleshare, there's always a tech play in it. The common denominator is there's a Filipino in there, or the Philippines is involved, and there's tech play. And you became the country manager of Yahoo Philippines. Just like MTV, I was a YM baby. I made so many friendships that are lasting that I still have now because YM, my first email is obviously Yahoo. So which is still around, by the way, still now. All the spitting that I did right before is still there. But what was it like leading Yahoo in its literally glory years in the late 2000s, early 2010s?
Well, Yahoo was the first global internet brand that established operations in the Philippines. So, kind of like joining MTV, it was fresh, but established.
Yep.
Needed no introduction, and being the early days of digital marketing, it had this coolness factor.
Yep.
In it, no, and Facebook was actually not that prevalent yet. There was even no Instagram, so really Yahoo commanded a lot of respect, and it was like a blank slate for me because, here we were trying to establish the brand in the Philippines. Not Yahoo US, but what is Yahoo in the Philippines? What does it mean for a Filipino consumer in the early age of digital marketing?
Yep.
We were reading news online for the very first time. We were posting for the very first time, and it just comes so naturally now. No, but back then, everything you did was the first time.
Yep.
Because it was online, and it's also I was responsible for the content, Yahoo News.
Yep.
And a foreign concept called digital advertising, and so that was how we had to make money.
Banners on banners and banners.
So my MTV experience served me well.
Nice.
But it was tough as nails.
Yep.
Because
nobody understood
wired media We're still buying media the old-fashioned way.
Trial
What are your
media.
ratings? What is your rate card? And then there was no benchmark.
Nope. I know that how that feels because that's exactly how it felt when I started Podcast Network Asia in 2019. Right? That it was even so the natural evangelization arc was like, hey, what is even a podcast? People didn't even know what a podcast was. So you had to overcome that. You had to create the supply. Then you have to then carve out budgets from brands, or now a majority of brands' budgets are digital, but 80% of that's reallocated, and you're gonna shoot for the 20% exploratory budget, and you're not the only game in town who wants that. So it's very difficult, and it's a tough grind, and you're gonna have to weather the storm because there are gonna be months and months of burn because you're not gonna be able to make ends meet. What did you learn there? Because again, Yahoo had the brand equity, the recognition, and then late 2010, you were still at the peak of what that is. But how did that change you? Considering that this is now tech in nature.
My biggest lesson in Yahoo, just again looking back, was that I'll say it in one sentence. In Yahoo, I learned that everyone is media.
What does that mean?
Everything you do, who you are, what you say, what you write, what you post, that's media that will be consumed. It is your brand. It is content.
Yes.
Exactly. And it was very different from how content was defined.
Yeah.
In the traditional media world. Here we were really in uncharted ground.
Yeah.
And a lot of people couldn't understand that. I said that a lot in my presentations. And in the context of youth marketing, again, the parallel with MTV was a little bit similar, because it was brand, it was capturing the hearts and minds of the youth.
Yeah.
And who was consuming digital media then? It was primarily young people.
Yeah.
And so it was really that. But that lesson that everyone is media was my takeaway. So in other words, and that has stuck with me. What you say, what you do, that's part of your branding. It is your content, and how are you going to capture attention with your content? That was really it, and I use those parallels even today.
Now, last thing before we take our last break, multiply.com in 2011 to 2013. Now, this is a unique situation because this is literally that for a couple of years, multiply.com and Facebook was going head to head. And if we all know who won that battle, but during these years, walk me through that experience, because I have so many people here, like two come to mind, like Ilana Cosmetics and Kim Store. Always credit that they started their empires in Multiply, and it was viral. This is pre-commerce before e-commerce before e-commerce was now. So what was that experience like? And again, especially going head to head with the likes of Facebook during those times.
I took on the Multiply role because the role was very specific. They realized that social media was not their future. But there were two countries in the world where the Multiply community was using it in a very unique way: the Philippines and Indonesia.
Yep.
Some very creative entrepreneurs, Kim Lato being one of them, were using the superior high-resolution photographs and albums of Multiply to post items for sale.
Yep.
This was also happening to a certain extent in Indonesia. So the new owners of Multiply, South African company called Naspers, acquired it. They also acquired Sulit.
From RJ.
And so they acquired it. for the purpose of establishing e-commerce marketplaces in Southeast Asia, to be led by the Philippines and Indonesia. So that was the role I was hired for. So I had two mandates. Number one, migrate the merchants of Multiply in the Philippines to the new marketplace platform of Multiply that was built. And that included payments and logistics. Because before, it was just the album and then text me, let's meet in Jollibee for the payment and, kaliwa.
Yes.
Yeah, it was all cash. I mean, it's still a lot of cash transactions today. But our marketplace platform had the payment solution, the payment gateway, using credit cards, and also, having a choice of delivery solutions. So we had to migrate the hundreds and hundreds of Filipino merchants into this marketplace, and then convince them that this was the better way. We put them all together as a Multiply community, and that was the mandate. And I built my team around it. What was interesting about Multiply was that I built a dream team. Multiply. All the past employees that I had worked with in the past, I assembled them and hired them for
Avengers style. So
employees from Dell, employees from Yahoo, employees from MTV.
Yep.
And a lot of them joined me in Multiply, and we had quite a good run until Multiply was sold in 2013.
It was sold again. I didn't know this. So after Naspers, they sold it off to.
Well, I was no longer around, but they decided to discontinue the plans, unfortunately, prematurely.
That's why it abruptly disappeared, and all of a sudden, all these merchants were just floating in thin air.
They were orphaned to a certain.
I think some even former Multiply peeps even try to build something out. I remember this vividly because I was in Groupon at that time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I was a salesman in Groupon. It's like, hey, there's so many merchants floating now trying to sell online, but they don't have a space. I mean, some people tried Sulit, which is also Naspers. Ayos Dito, and all these things, right? And then even that got rolled into OLX, and that didn't turn out very well. So lesson learned: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's it. Because the more you pivot and then try to optimize more, it'll just probably, and have a little bit more patience to get there. Because had you continued, you would have probably just made bank. Because look at how the painful starts of how Lazada and Shopee also started out. They had to weather the storm up until the market was ready for all of these things to happen, and then boom. It worked. Now let's take our last break, and when we come back, of course, we'll now continue the journey all the way to how we then end up in IBPAP. But let's talk about that more after the break.
Hey hustlers, wish there was an easy way to open a bank account and grow your money without the hassle of lengthy application process and income documents? Well, I got good news, because today's sponsor, Uno Digital Bank, is here to help you achieve your financial goals. You can easily open an account with the Uno app in just 5 minutes and one valid ID. And as one of the 6 digital banks licensed by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, the company is committed to providing customers with simpler, better, and more accessible banking. Last year, Uno Bank was recognized by the Asia Banking and Finance Awards and bagged the title Open Banking Initiative of the Year due to the success of its partnership with GCash, one of the Philippines' leading mobile wallet platforms. And with the Uno mobile app, you can access an hashtag Uno Ready savings account and enjoy daily interest crediting. With their hashtag Uno Earn or hashtag Uno Boost time deposit accounts, you can enjoy a high interest rate of up to 6.5% per annum. Enjoy monthly payouts with hashtag Uno Earn and flexible tenors with hashtag Uno Boost. Other app features include pay bills, the Uno Virtual Debit MasterCard, life insurance, scan and pay with QRPH, and loans. And the one thing that I really love about Uno Digital Bank is they're open to collaborate with a lot of Filipino startups. I've had a chance to see the partnerships that they've had lined up with the startups that they have, and it's truly exciting to see how a digital bank like Uno can enable startups to unlock the power of fintech through digital banking. So if you're ready to elevate your banking experience, download the Uno mobile app today from the Google Play Store or App Store. Or if you want to collaborate with them, I'll be happy to give you an intro. Just shoot us an email at hello@hustleshare.com. Hey hustlers, how many apps are you using at work these days? 5, 10, 20? Let's face it, there are chat apps for internal communication and emails for external, Cloud Drive for docs and wikis, calendars and video conferencing, spreadsheets and project management software, and probably yet another tool to connect them all. It is a mess. And if you're collaborating with cross-border colleagues, partners, or suppliers, it gets even more complicated. And don't you find it disruptive when your personal and business messages get mixed up? And if this sounds painfully familiar, switch to Lark, the leading super app for work designed to increase your team's productivity by 10x at an unbelievable fraction of the cost. With Lark, manage projects, chat with your team, build a knowledge base with wikis, and automate workflows such as approvals without code effortlessly from one app. No switching or integration needed. Join fast-growing companies in over 125 countries, including Xiaomi, Glint, and the Philippines' very own Kumu and Mama Luz, who trust Lark as their workplace super app. I've started using Lark myself for our pressure washing business service, Papa Pressure, and I'm totally loving it. Want to see how Lark can revolutionize your business? Click the link in the description or download Lark for free at larksuite.com. That's larksuite.com, the productivity super app every business needs.
And we're back from a break. We are still with Jack Madrid that told us what that multiply hustle was. So again, after this, man, we still have a long ways to go. But real quickly, after multiply, what was the next stint? So you did DCOM, Digital Commerce Association of the Philippines, and then LCC E-commerce Solutions. What were these stints like?
DCOM was in parallel with my role. That was the Digital Commerce Association that I co-founded.
While you were in Multiply.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, so post that, unexpectedly, I got another phone call.
Okay. Here we go again.
asking me what I was going to be doing, and I said that I was going to move to Vancouver, Canada. Because my family was already living there.
Okay.
So during my the tail end of my multiply years, most family was in Canada. So my plan all along was to move there.
Mm-hmm.
But the LBC group reached out and were interested in our business model. They identified some synergies with their delivery work. It made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But now that 10 years have passed, I'll admit to you that my primary motive to take on that role in the company was called LCC.
Okay.
What was really because I had built such a great team, and I wanted my team members in Multiply
that was soft landing
to have jobs.
Yes.
So the deal was, take my team and I'll take on this role.
Yeah, that speaks so much of you as a leader, because at the end of the day, I know how that feels, and I know I've had a startup fail before, and on dark times as a founder, as a who runs a ship, as an operator, when you look at your runway and you look at your P&L, and there are going to be times where you don't even know if you're going to be able to make ends meet. What keeps you up at night? And I still know that harrowing feeling. It's like, what are these guys going to feed their families? The buck stops with you. And if the ship has sunk, you need to find an iceberg or a little oasis or a little island or atoll for them to land to. So LCC was that then. But after this, I literally see in your LinkedIn, you eventually still did move on to Vancouver. But before that, you did your now baby, which I think is the one that literally feeds your heart with joy, which is Cascadia Fine Wines. How did the wine creep into you, literally and figuratively? How did wine come into the picture, Jack?
Wine has always been around. My brother is a partner in a major wine importer, and I've always been exposed to wine, and always had a certain curiosity about it, but never had really had time to pay a lot of attention to it. But when my family moved to Canada, I had a little bit more time.
Okay.
Nobody was at home, and so one day I decided to explore this curiosity.
Okay.
And began this practice of tasting certain wines.
Okay.
And then it led into some social activity around wine.
Right.
And today these are part of my wine circles.
Nice.
And it led into this, I hate to use the word intellectual curiosity about wine. Why do wines smell and taste the way they do? Why do I prefer wines that are not?
You went into a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it just got into that. Why does it do this? It just unleashed all this curiosity. And then when I finally made it to Vancouver, I was not working full time, and I had time on my hands. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to wine school, and I pursued my wine certifications over the next 3 years.
Okay.
And jumped into the fray. I didn't begin with like kindergarten. I went straight to like high school.
You skipped
Paris. And so I got exposed to sommeliers and wine directors and
wow,
my classmates. And today they're my friends in Vancouver. And wow, it just kind of took over.
Yep.
My waking hours.
No, and that Pacific Northwest is literally like the epicenter of the best wines in the world.
Well, that's a personal preference. I saw an opportunity since Vancouver is at the heart of the Pacific Northwest. Yep. But there's a specific reason. There's certain specific grapes that are grown in Oregon and Washington, and I said these are underrepresented and underappreciated, especially in Asia. And so I saw an opportunity, and I was very curious and wanted to get to know winery owners and winemakers. So kind of built a business around that. But my idea was really to distribute these brands to Asia.
Nice.
And so I did that out of Vancouver. That's what my company Cascadia Fine Wines does. So that is the business side of it.
Okay.
But there's a little bit more because, and this will eventually lead into IBPAP.
Okay.
It just made me more active in the global wine community. Early on in my wine journey, I discovered an app called Vivino.
Okay.
And I thought it was just a price comparison app.
Okay.
It turned out to be the Facebook of wine.
Okay. Wow.
Luckily, when I joined in 2013, it was still early days, and it was very, very exciting for all these wine geeks to meet online through text only. There was no video, audio. But we exchanged wine notes, posted our wine reviews, and you kind of get to know each other and people's personalities if they write notes a certain way,
right,
through the app, through the wine reviews that you write. And we became a community of maybe 100 or so people, and until today we're friends, even those who no longer use the app. So I became active on Vivino. All my wine friends around the world, I made through Vivino.
Okay.
that expanded my world,
Okay.
literally, because everywhere I travel, I have a Vivino friend, and we have dinner.
Nice.
I bring a bottle or two, and we have dinner wherever I go.
That's amazing, man. And again, just imagine the type of conversation, the level of depth that you guys will have in those wine conversations. But you mentioned that this also led into IBPAP.
Yes, in
Was it a
2021,
wine buddy?
this is very unlikely, and this is the first time this anecdote will be shared
Okay.
in public.
Thank you.
But I got to know the people in Vivino, and one day they called me in the middle of 2021, out of the blue, another phone call, and they wanted to set up operations in Canada, and it sounded like they were very interested to get maybe to explore the opportunity with me. Because I have an e-commerce background, and Vivino actually became an e-commerce company. It's a wine.
Makes sense. You already have that community, so it's easy to sell there.
And they were not present in Canada, and they were looking to set up in Canada. And I actually thought that I was the perfect candidate. So the job role was, you had to apply through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Which I hadn't used in, like, I don't know, 12 years. And so I became active on LinkedIn, or tried to be, but I realized that my LinkedIn profile had nothing to do about wine.
Okay.
So I had to kind of
wine it up,
rebrand it, recraft it to make Jack Madrid a wine person.
Okay.
Which I did in 24 hours. And so to make a long story short, I applied for the job. There were like 67 of us.
Okay.
For some strange reason, that role was never hired for.
Okay.
Till today, there is no Vivino Canada. This flurry of LinkedIn activity from me, who had disappeared.
Okay.
From the Philippines for 7 years.
Yeah.
I did not network for 7 years.
Yep.
Caught a few people's attention. And then a couple of weeks later, I got another phone call.
Okay, here we go.
From a headhunter for the IBPAP role.
Wow.
And I suspect because it was my LinkedIn activity, because I was posting a lot about wine for that short period.
Yeah.
And my theory is, without that LinkedIn activity, I may not be here talking to you today, and I would not be that. But that's just what I think.
No, but again, we don't believe in this coincidences. This is probably meant to be. But when you got that, and again, if this episode will have a common theme, it's the phone call.
Yes.
Somebody rang you up again. Yeah. But what made you interested? Because obviously you took the role, because we're talking about IBPAP now.
Yeah.
And what made you want to go back? Because I'm pretty sure you were enjoying a lot being the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. I loved my life.
For you to pluck yourself out of there and go straight back here.
In the middle of COVID.
IBPAP. In the middle of COVID, what did it take for you to say yes?
It was not a hard decision. I had an understanding of what the industry was.
Okay.
I didn't realize how much it had grown since my days in Dell. And I thought, okay, it's an association. It will do association things.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, I can do that. But what made me do it was the curiosity to maybe inject some fresh air, some energy.
Point. Yep.
And because clearly they knew I was an outsider. I mean, an industry outsider.
Right.
And I was also, I guess, appreciative of this willingness to think a little bit outside the box. They were talking to an outsider because there were industry people, I think, who were also being considered. And so the fact that there was some thought to, okay, let's pick somebody from outside, that kind of hit me, my own curiosity about what I could actually add to this. And last but not least, it was the opportunity to return to the Philippines after 7 years, with an easy return ticket back. My family was not going to move back with me. It's just me. And so, fortunately, I have housing here in Manila. So it wasn't really that complicated a decision.
Right.
It was more a mental sort of, how do I, reintegrate myself into Philippine business.
Right.
Do I want to do that? Do I have the patience to do that? But on a more personal note, it was also an opportunity for me to spend more time with my parents. At that time, they were in their late 80s, and I said, I haven't seen them for a few years.
Yeah.
What better way to return to the Philippines, with a role that would keep me busy, allow me time to reunite with family and friends, and really nothing to lose. I was available.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, okay, we'll talk about IBPAP, right? Let's just talk about the sheer weight. I'm not saying it's a massive. You mentioned that this is something that's a fit at a glove, but the vital role of what IBPAP does, I think that's something that a lot of people might not really fully understand. That okay, there's an association, but as you create associations or groups like this, these are vital to propel things forward, because typically as a industry grows, there will be groups and subgroups. There will be cliques, and that's normal. And if there's no all-encompassing body that kind of looks after such a big industry, imagine if there's cliques and sub-cliques that don't cooperate towards each other, that actually see the whole picture. What does IBPAP literally do for those people who don't understand, and what's the day-to-day like in what you guys do?
The charter of IBPAP and what I have taken on as my responsibility in the role of CEO, like many other jobs.
Yeah.
It's whatever you make of it. And I think each and every leader of IBPAP, will have their own intent, and signature, in what they contribute, and we've had a history of that. My predecessors have built it to what it is before I took over. So again, I was faced with a blank slate.
Yep.
Well, almost a blank slate. I mean, there are some things that just need to be done.
Yep.
But I think more than that, it's also the manner in which you do it, and the quality of your engagement. The energy that one brings into it, especially at such a critical time when the majority of our workforce was working remotely.
Yep.
And we were in the middle of this, on-site versus work from home battle, which we had to navigate. But going back to IBPAP's role, we are the collective voice of the industry. We have the responsibility for representing the interests and the concerns and the opportunities for growth of our membership organizations, and making sure that the ease of doing business in the country, and all our work with the government is as easy and seamless as possible. So that's a big chunk of the work. Along with that is also the managing the cost of doing business in the country. It's kind of related, the ease of doing business and the cost of doing business. Because it's no longer India and the Philippines anymore. There are an array of this third level IT BPM destination. South Africa, Costa Rica, Mexico,
Yep.
Vietnam, Egypt, they're all wanting to maximize their market share
Right.
from India and the Philippines.
Mhm.
So promoting the Philippines, and as a leader in IT BPM services, that's a very big chunk of what we do. But aside from that, we are in charge of country branding.
Of course.
Our industry has evolved, matured into very different verticals. It's no longer just BPO or only call center. It is much more than what most people think. The diversity of global business services and customer experiences that our 1.7 million strong workforce perform every day,
Mhm.
has grown and diversified tremendously over the past 20 plus years.
Mhm.
They're also responsible for communicating how we think the talent supply gap needs to be addressed. Talent development I believe, is the only significant hurdle in us achieving our job growth and revenue targets for the industry. And last but not least, we also work very closely with the infrastructure companies in the country, the property sector, the telecom sector, in making sure that we have the right digital and physical infrastructure so that our member organizations can expand throughout the country. One very important point, and this was accelerated during COVID, is really the development of the countryside. No longer is IT BPM limited to Manila or Cebu.
No.
It is literally from north to south. You will
Correct.
find an IBPAP member organization in all tier 2, tier 3 cities and provinces. And we spend a lot of time with the LGUs in helping them craft their own roadmaps so that they can attract investors. So we're a pillar of the industry, and this is why this job, not just my job, but my team, and this is why we do what we do.
Yeah.
This is why we show up every day.
Right.
Because we know it's important work, and we love what we do, and it's for the industry, but it's ultimately for the country.
That's amazing. And you guys are doing an amazing work. But again, it's gargantuan. It's so huge, and it affects so many lives. But it's never just easy. Like, all right, we're just gonna get people and whatnot. Of course, you guys do events. But what are the challenges you guys experience every time? Because again, there's so many parties involved. There's the talent skill gap. There's competition from overseas. There's a looming threat of AI. If people even see it as a threat, I see it as a tool, and all these other things. But what are the overall challenges you still deal with day to day that you have to overcome?
There are many, but it boils down to two.
Okay.
The ease of doing business and the cost of doing business will always be there, regardless.
How do you solve that?
Well, we are the voice. We articulate the concerns of our members. We communicate their concerns to the appropriate level of government, whether it be national or local, and we get pretty granular, because we try to address all concerns. And we do our best to convince and recommend what we feel is important for the growth, because our targets are very clear. It's number of jobs created and retained, and then correspondingly the revenue that we generate.
Got it.
investors have more options now
Yep.
than they've ever had. It is no longer just India and the Philippines. So that will always be there, the ease and the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, and this is very true today, and it has been for a long time, it's really addressing the seemingly unceasing demand for the offshoring of jobs to the Philippines. We are a world capital in IT BPM, and few industries can claim that. And so I think we really need, as a country, to address the skills gap that is already happening and will continue to accelerate in the years to come, whether it's because of Gen AI or other trends.
Mhm.
Everything is interconnected.
Yep.
Cost optimization will always be a criteria for investors, and so you're juggling all of these different things. Because investors have all these choices. Do I go Vietnam? Do I go Philippines? Do I go South Africa? It's a balancing act all around, and our job is to really make sure that all the stakeholders in our ecosystem do their part, because our industry, simply put, it's just too big to fail.
Absolutely.
And if we want to continue charting this path for Filipinos to enter the middle class, this is certainly one way.
Yep. That's the ticket, guaranteed ticket, technically, that you're going to get in. But all right, I wish we had more time, but the last few questions. How do you then get that? Again, you are the voice, you take action, you're front and center and propelling the whole agenda of everyone forward. I know you guys work with the DICT and everything, which is vital to really keep the cost of business low and to make it easy for people to come in and invest here. But again, it's a complex problem. It's a big industry. What are the things that you guys do to keep that envelope being pushed forward?
What we have done is really I would the first thing I want to say is maybe maintain our visibility.
Okay.
As in representing the industry. In the previous administration, I feel we, as an industry, took a little bit of a backseat, for different reasons, compared to previous administrations where, we were quite visible. So I think, happy to say that, in the past 2 years, we have regained that visibility.
Absolutely. You guys are doing an amazing job doing that.
And it's just having that confidence, and message discipline. What do I mean by that? I think we stick to the core messages. I'm capable of asking and communicating 100 things, but because we need 100 things. But if you stick to the core and focus on that, and know what's truly important, and we just double down, and gather as much of our stakeholders in having this powerful voice, and always being visible, always being talked about. We cannot do everything. I wish we could be a university too, so we could take on upskilling ourselves, but
correct.
We can't. We're only 32 employees.
Yeah.
So we need the entire ecosystem. So visibility, and I think doing a credible job in getting this ecosystem to take on their share.
Absolutely.
We cannot do this alone.
No, absolutely. It takes a village, right? You guys are going to be paving the way. You're going to be that glue guy, that center of the centrifuge that actually allows it to work. But everybody requires active participation. whether you're a company or an investor or even an employee, everybody has an active part because again, yes, it's too big to fail, but if you let it, if you disregard it, you take it for granted, the level of excellence that we're currently on having right now can also just wither away if we're not actively doing it. Now, last question, Jack, before I let you go. All right, I rarely ask this nowadays, but for someone of your degree, episode 300, I need to ask you. Hindsight being 2020, if I lent you the keys to the Hustleshare time machine once again and give you that ability to talk to yourself and give advice to that eighth grader in KL, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
If I were to connect the dots backwards, I really can't think of any major regrets. I think the dots all make sense, especially when you look at it backwards. But I want to answer your question. If I could do certain things over again, I would have spent more time with family. And I say this because I'm in the fourth quarter of this ball game. So I can say this. I would have spent more time with my family. Because you can't get
it back.
Can't get those things back. Money, fame, success, sounds like a cliche, but those fade away.
Correct.
And so that's the first thing that comes to mind. But on the work front, it's easy to say, you made that decision, you made this decision, turned out to be not optimal. But you know what? Things happen a certain way.
Yeah.
For a specific reason. So I don't want to overthink about these decisions. So I think the only thing that I would truly change is really time spent with the people important in your life.
That is amazing. So much wisdom and such an amazing 300th episode. What an episode. But before I let you go, Jack, again, it takes a village to bring the whole IT BPM industry forward. If people want to participate, join you guys, or even have questions, where did they go and how did they do that?
Well, we are upgrading our website, but that would be the starting point. IBPAP.org. If you want to reach me, I'm quite active still on LinkedIn. But if you are more interested in my wine pursuits,
there you go.
I have recently become a wine columnist, and I write a weekly wine column on billionario.com.
There you go. The B, not the M. There's also a Millonario, the Billionario, not Millonario. Okay.
So my column is called The Vines That Bind.
Nice.
And so I would be very happy to answer everyone's wine questions.
Yes.
Because my interest in wine is really to make it approachable and to demystify it as a topic.
Absolutely. And again, don't forget, Jack, you have a podcast too. You're a great communicator.
Of course. Thank you. My podcast is called Promptly Speaking. It is an IBPAP podcast. It is on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. And looking forward to I interview the movers and shakers of the industry.
It's like Hustleshare, but for IT BPM, but way, way better. There you go again, Jack. Thank you very much. Before I let you go, follow us on whatever podcast app you're listening to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if we did say some jargon, it's going to be the show notes on hustleshare.com. And again, thank you to our premium supporters that allow us to keep this baby going. And again, if you want to also be like them, please do subscribe at premium.hustleshare.com. Again, Jack, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ron. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.